Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money with Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Natasha Bonsu, a financial well-being advocate who's working to empower educators and support vulnerable students by making financial literacy more inclusive and practical. Natasha, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for the invitation. It's amazing to be here.
Yeah, well, excited to have you. You're doing some great work. So, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and what led you to start focusing on financial well-being?
So my relationship with money from a young age has been get a job, get money, live the dream, as they say. But I didn't know how to manage money very well. I wasn't taught about saving and dividing your income into the three pots. I didn't understand credit. I just knew I could apply and have access to money. So my story with money led me to make poor financial decisions. And as I became a mum and a single parent, I had obviously more to do with money because I had to, money wasn't only for me, it was for me and my children. So I had to make better decisions. So as I've navigated the world, I've made some bad decisions and I don't want young people to make the mistakes that I have made. So I fell into financial well-being. Again, I was looking for a part-time job to make more money, to look after me and my children, to work with schools. So therefore I can drop my children off, go to a school, deliver a workshop and pick up my children at school to after school. And as I was teaching, it just grew, and the impact and the difference that I was making meant that I wanted to do this full time and speak to more young people. And then young people turned into young adults, and young adults turned into adults. So we all discuss money and just encourage one another with our relationship with money.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think there's a couple of things there is for people who've been watching and listening to the podcast, is you may have noticed a common theme that all of these money experts have made money mistakes themselves. And
Yes.
so I think that's something that we have in common. And I don't think that we should ever feel bad, about making a money mistake. How do you work with people when you come across that and they've made a money mistake? What
I,
kind of
I think in life, anything you do, life is about life lessons, and you're going to make a mistake. But the biggest thing about making a mistake is getting back up and trying again. And obviously, I'm a big advocate of learning from other people's mistakes. I have adults, I have parents, grandparents who've obviously lived before me, and I can use their experiences as guidance. So it's so important to appreciate that lived experience is the best experience. You may not have gone through what I have gone through, but if you hear my story, maybe in your future it might be applicable. So you can say, oh, Natasha mentioned this 6 months ago. I'm now in this situation. How did she get out of that situation? I might copy her method. So it's really important just to learn that my mistake could be your way of getting out of a mistake. So we all have to discuss money so we can share hints and tips. So that's why it's so important to discuss money, because what I've made as a mistake hopefully wouldn't be your mistake, and then we all learn and grow. But the best experience is lived experience, and we just have to remind ourselves that you are allowed to make mistakes in this world, but you are encouraged to try again and learn from it.
Yeah, well, I think that's so important. People have heard me talk about my own personal mistake, taking on too much credit when I was
Yes.
young. Would you mind sharing about your mistake and how you grew
So
from it?
my biggest mistake was when I turned 18 and I'm an adult and I'm allowed to gain access to credit card, overdraft, loans. So obviously at 16, 17, you're a minor, you're a junior, and as soon as you turn 18, you're an adult. But no one gave me the heads up that now at 18 years old, I am responsible for what I borrow, how much I borrow, and the repayments. I didn't factor in that I could lose my job. So for example, I graduated, went to work in the city, was doing asset management, and then the global financial crisis of 2008, I'm a young worker and I've lost my job. But obviously, because I had got this job and I was so excited about this job, my lifestyle was up here. I am borrowing up here, and now I've lost my job and I'm down here, and it's keeping up with the Joneses and my expenses. So that was my biggest life lesson at 23, 24. I didn't think I could ever lose my job, and I've lost my job and my money is messed up. Then, because of the consequences of that and my lifestyle, in the UK, we call it county court judgment, where you've got into so much debt that you're not bankrupt, but it's the stage before bankruptcy. And therefore, my credit file, my credit score is rock bottom. No one's lending me any money. So that was the biggest life lesson that I learned at 24, 25, 26. Now that I'm starting a young family, I don't have access to certain money because my credit score is so low, but I have a young family to start and buying a house and all those consequences. So I'm saying this to say my mistakes was something, it started at 18 because I just didn't do the transition from a minor to an adult very well. I went from chip pan to fire, as they say, and I didn't know the consequences of the fire at all. So that's why I talk to young people that you're about to be 18. You're going to have access to a lot of money and information. Kindly use it wisely.
Yeah, that's very similar to the mistake I fell into. I was probably about 20 years old and got my first credit card and, thought it was pretty much free money. Even though I was a finance major with an emphasis in investments, I could analyze a company, a balance sheet, all those things, but I didn't really understand credit because we had never talked about credit.
Right.
And so it happens. And so I think, as we both talk about this for people watching and listening, or for those advisors who are watching and listening, this is something that your clients are probably going through or their kids are going through. So, make sure you're covering the basics when you're talking to your clients
Definitely.
about
And
this
to
stuff.
contribute to what you're saying, a lot of young people, a lot of adults think that if they've done a business studies major or an economics major, that they understand investments, assets, and those kinds of things. But there's a big difference between company finance and personal finance. So we can understand the risks of starting a business and how to set up a company and how to go and get a business loan, but we are not taught personal finance. No one is taught personal finance, especially in the UK in schools 20 something years ago. So we have to make that distinction between just because you're a business major or an economics major, it doesn't mean you understand your personal finance. And that's why some people get themselves into trouble because you have accountants who know how to do a balance sheet and budgeting, but their own personal finance, they're not as disciplined. But when it comes to work, they are. But when it's their own personal money, they don't have that systems in place. So we have to always distinct between personal finance.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. And it's like that old, analogy of the shoe cobbler who doesn't mend their own shoes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
You
so, so true. And then just to contribute to what I've just said, we also have to understand that if you were taught finances at a young age, maybe your parents did teach you, you might get into a relationship or a friendship with somebody who wasn't taught. And as the saying says, birds of a feather flock together, you might influence them or they might influence you. So you might learn bad habits from your partner that may influence how you now become a spender or a saver. So sometimes in our best interest, we know what to do, but then we get married or enter relationships, and that person's personality can overbear ours, and then we make poor financial decisions. So sometimes you might be great by yourself, but as soon as you enter a relationship, your dynamics change. And obviously, if you have children, they don't know about money. They just know about their needs and their wants, and they want it now. A kid doesn't know that there's a budget that we need to factor in before we buy the latest toy or shoes or trainers or whatever. So kids will definitely hurt your wallet and take what they need when they need it. So it's that stages of life, and that's another thing I talk about when it comes to money. It's stages. How you spend your money as a single person is different from how you spend your money in a couple, in a relationship, and it'll be definitely different in how you spend your money as a member of a family, you know? So we have to factor in the ecosystem around us.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really great point. Is, I mean, one of the things that we talk about is that money is one of the leading causes of stress and divorce, or separation in a marriage. So, having those money conversations and growing as a family. But I think, let's focus a little bit on your work with children, because I think what you're talking about is that children don't learn money in school. I know in the US there's a lot of financial literacy programs, but when they've done studies, they're still not really moving the needle. Is what are you finding effective in working with kids?
Right now in schools, I find that kids want real talk. They don't want it to be sugar coated. They just want to know the facts and they want to know practical steps. So there's no need to patronize them or be demeaning. Just tell them how it is, plain and simple. That's number one. Number two, give them scenario-based learning. Give them the £100 and let them know that this is what you can do with £100. What would you do first? What's more important? What's less important? So I give my young people, my young teachers, this scenario. You have £100. Are you going to pay the electricity bill or are you going to buy the new PlayStation? A lot of them say they're going to buy the new PlayStation. Then I tell them, if you buy the new PlayStation and you have not paid your electricity bill, how will the PlayStation work? The PlayStation cannot work with no electricity, no power in the house. Then they're like, oh, we need certain things to allow our gadgets to work. So you need to do, as they say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? In this scenario, is the electricity that needs to be paid in order for your gadget to work. So creating those scenarios, because sometimes they don't think big picture. That's another thing that I've learned in the education system, that young people need to learn big picture, big scenarios, not just nuclear, not just small. They need to see the whole holistic approach, and they don't get the opportunity because as parents, we tell our children what to do, that they don't have to make a decision. So they don't see the other factors that contribute to making a decision. So anyway, I digress. But I think my way of teaching is scenario based. Here's the money, what's needed? Then I ask you, do you have electricity to pay for this? No. Have you paid the gas bill in order for your cooker to work to make the meal? And then we have a discussion. Then they understand how the system works. You need to pay for X in order for Y to work.
Well, I think that's so valuable. And I know that's the work that Karen Holland does with her gifting sense and the Does It Make Sense calculator is, that's the whole
Yeah.
point that she makes is that, a purchase is not in isolation.
No.
Uh, and as you point out, and I think even adults don't think about that. It was funny. We took our car and we've been having some problems. We have an older car because we don't, we think that's a great way to save money is to not buy a new car every couple of years. And I was talking to the owner of the I can't even think of it, of the auto place about, like, okay, is it time to buy a new car? And he said, well, think about this. He goes, remember that he goes, not only are you going to have the price of the new car, but your insurance is going to go up, your registration costs are going to go up, and it's still going to need to have things fixed. So you're not going to escape the repair bills. It just may seem to be more constant now. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about is like these things aren't in isolation, and so many of these children's financial literacy programs are focused on, like, here's how investing works, or which is a great skill, but investing, I don't know, do you think investing comes later on down the road?
Oh, yes, completely. I believe in the order of understanding your personality with money, because obviously all of us come from different backgrounds. Some of us have access to money, some of us didn't. So your relationship with money is first. Did you come from a culture where your parents saved? So find out what you are. Are you a saver or a spender? When you know your personality with money, then understand if I'm a spender, how can I encourage myself to increase my saving? Then you're the type of person that I would say, let's find you different methods to save so that you can have the emergency fund. I love what Dave Ramsey talks about the emergency fund and $1,000 being saved for the emergency. Because again, in 2008, when there was a global financial crisis, I did not have an emergency fund. And as human beings, we don't think of the unexpected. We're all positive. We all think of the good things and the good things that will happen to us. But unfortunately, we have to factor in that the unexpected will happen to all of us. And what do you do when the car breaks down, when the boiler, what we call gas heating, stops working and the car breaks down? We all have to think of the unexpected, which we don't like to do. So again, I tell my young people, you're in the generation where it's not a job for life. You're going to be made unemployed. AI could take over your job. You may not get the qualification that you like. You might have an expectation that the job that you dreamed of for 10 years, when you actually practically do that job, you don't like the job. Some people study law. They've done all of the law degrees, the law bar, they become a practicing lawyer, then they realize that's not what they like to do. You're now going to have to retrain to get into a new job. What do you do in that season of retraining? So I'm always telling my young people, have the unexpected money, the pots, the emergency fund there for the unexpected. Once you've got that established, then you think about investing, because at least the emergency fund is you're gonna use for the emergency. If you started investing, by the time you can liquidate that fund, it's maybe a month, 2 months, or it could be a week, but you need that emergency money time T right now, and you don't have access to the investment, you've made yourself a bit crippled. So it's so important to understand yourself, save and have the emergency fund. Then through your savings is what you're now going to put in the investment vehicle. Everybody who invests is investing money that is a surplus that they don't mind losing if they was to lose it, because investments are risky. But you can't invest something that you hold dearly because you may lose it. So that, for me, that's the order. Know yourself, save, then invest.
Know yourself, save, then invest. I love that. And I'm with you completely because it takes care of the basics. Is, I come from the insurance field, and that's something that people overlook. And an emergency fund is a form of insurance. It's just a smaller form of insurance that you do directly. And people don't understand that always, that when you buy an insurance policy, all you're doing is you're transferring that risk of having an emergency fund for a specific risk to the insurance company. That's all that really happens.
That is
Um,
it.
so, let's talk, a little bit before we get into our closing questions, is how does financial well-being help protect vulnerable or at-risk individuals, especially children who come from, uh, less than optimal
Yeah.
backgrounds?
For my vulnerable children, it's so important that they understand financial literacy. Again, because of maybe their background, they weren't taught financial literacy. Maybe because of their home and the circumstances in their home, their parents can't work or don't have access to funds, and they've seen their parents struggle, that they have told themselves, my mother struggled, so I won't. So I'll do anything and everything to have access to money. Now, those young people will try and do things illegally sometimes or naively in order to gain access to this money. So if me as an educator and as a speaker, I'm telling those young people, I know home is tough. I know money is hard at home, but you do not have to do these difficult things or questionable things for money. We can find other strategies, but sometimes young people don't know that they have an alternative option. They just understand one route. And it's my job as an educator to let them know that there are different pathways to the final destination, and you don't have to take that rocky route. There is another way, but they don't know the other options because we don't discuss the other pathways. We don't discuss the alternatives. So for vulnerable people, I really want them to know You don't have to listen to everything that you hear and see. Just because social media, somebody has the cash, the lifestyle, doesn't mean how they got it was the right way. It could be questionable way. And then for my young people and my vulnerable young people to let them know that there are alternatives. We've all been told to get a job, and we all understand how difficult it is now to get a job because in my time, we got a job in retail. We go to a shop and we'll become a sales assistant. Now in the UK, the high street, the shops are closing down because we're all becoming online shoppers. So you don't need sales assistants like you used to. But there are other ways to make money. We all have a skill. Can you monetize your skill as a young person? Can you do the graphic design, the social media? But you people don't know that they have a skill because they haven't been encouraged. Therefore, they don't know that instead of being illegal activities, they could use what they're good at and monetize their skill. So it's my job as an educator to let the young person know that you have a talent, you have a skill that can be monetized, that you can make money safely and securely, that you don't have to do something questionable. And if you do, and again, all of this is to say, if my young person has done something questionable, I'd encourage them that you can stop, you can come out, and we can find an alternative route for you. So my passion with financial literacy is for my disabled young people, my autistic young people, my people from disadvantaged homes, to let them know that there are alternatives for them. And it's just encouraging them to look at other pathways.
Well, I think what you're saying is so important. And, there were two different things that you said there about disabled people and disadvantaged people. And I know that disabled people can oftentimes be very frustrated and need special help with their financial lives. And I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but in the US, there's special savings account called ABLE accounts that they can set up. Are there special financial products and services for disabled people in the UK?
Not yet, not yet, not as common as it should be. So again, they need to be signposted, but it's not talked about as much. So it's getting there, but it's not that popular yet.
So I think that's something important for people who are working with clients who are disabled or have disabled kids is that the planning needs are different. And if you are somebody with a disability who's listening to this program, find out what resources are available to you. I have listeners all over the world, so you'll have to, see what's
Yeah.
available in your country. But oftentimes, your government may have a special program. I know there's programs all over the world. There's new nonprofits that are creating programs specifically to help people with disabilities recover. But I think the other thing you talked about is people coming from a disadvantaged home. I think sometimes as advisors or somebody who comes from a wealthy family or a middle class family where there is money, bills are paid, that we have a hard time understanding a home where maybe three generations are living there, or as you point out, the electricity bill is not being paid is, how do people broaden their perspective in your mind to understand that this may be happening with their children's classmates, um,
Yeah. So
to talk to their kids?
yeah, that's the tough one because again, in I don't know how it is in America, but in the UK, we don't like talking about money. It's a very we don't talk about money, we don't talk about salary. So it's hard to have that conversation. But with young people being so giving, they do sometimes drop keywords. So as an educator, it's for us to have our ears open constantly to conversations around the playground and at the school dining hall to see what's going on, one with the young person. Two, they will tell you and they will use words like keywords like I'm going to flip money, which means make money. I'm going to do X to get money. So and so told me to open a bank account to make money. So they're going to discuss their aspirations pertaining to money. And it's our job as educators to hear those keywords and to say, oh, you would like to open a bank account? Why do you need to open a bank account? Do you not have a child savings bank account because your parents don't have one? Then is when you're going to find out what the situation is at home and why they don't have a child savings account, which would have transferred to an adult savings account. And that's where you'll have that conversation about money and what goes on at home to see how you can best support them. But we have to let young teachers and young people know that obviously, we all know not every child is academic. Some of these young people are very entrepreneurial spirited. They have an idea of how to make money. So let's encourage them to have that skill developed even further so they can be more entrepreneurial and maybe not typically go down the academic route. But again, being academic or entrepreneurial still means how to manage your finances, and young people still need that life skill either way.
Yeah, well, and I think that also, as you mentioned, educators should have their ears open, but I think also parents should talk to their kids and find out what their kids are hearing. Because I know, when I was in high school, some of my friends from playing basketball came from, a different background than I did, and some of them, as you point out, were doing illegal activities to get money because they didn't have money in the household, but I didn't have those conversations with my parents.
No, parents also have a big job. Again, where I stand, I'm a parent and an educator. So I'm not putting all the onuses on educators because educators can only do so much. My first and foremost job is a parent before I'm an educator. So it is my onus as parents, as we all do, to teach our young people about finances. But sometimes as a parent, we don't know how to teach because we weren't taught. But then therefore it goes back to learn. So therefore you can teach your young person in your home what to do. And if you don't know, and unfortunately, we're in a system where we have information overload. There's so many podcasts, there's so many resources, there's so many information about money. But find, like we discussed earlier on, find a resource or a person who's talking about money that resonates with you, that you think they are sharing some practical tips that you can listen to and take it on board. And then check the internet for verification. If anything that I'm saying today, Tony, people don't agree with or understand, they can Google what I've said and see if there's a second, third, or fourth opinion to see what if it aligns with their mission. So don't just hear one message and take it blindly. Constantly hear this same message and see if multiple people are talking the same wavelength, then you know that you're in a good direction. But we have to talk about money because, as my mum will say, what's guaranteed in life is death and taxes. Whilst you're alive, you're going to work. You're going to work, you're going to pay taxes, you're going to pay bills. Learn how this currency, this money works so that you can make sound decisions. That's all it boils down to.
Yeah, well, and that's a fantastic point about finding good, solid resources
Yeah.
that actually know what they're talking about. Excuse me. So, frog in the throat. Uh, but yeah, that is a challenge. And for people who watch and listen to this podcast, as you know, that I've had on a wide variety of guests from around the world, different backgrounds, different facets of the money journey, including family therapists who talk about money. And so, you can listen through the archives to find a guest that resonates with you. But as you do, as you point out, is if you're listening to somebody and they're giving you advice and you think, oh boy, that's a great idea, is do some research on that and see if it's really a good idea. And then ask the question is not, don't just look at it in isolation, but think about like, okay, does this fit my plan, my goals, my values, who I am, before you
Exactly.
jump into something?
Exactly. So, so important. Read the book, listen to the podcast, ask a friend, I've heard about this. What do you think about what I've heard? And they can maybe confirm or deny what it is, and then you take it from there. But it's so important to start. We can't just ignore money. We have to learn how to manage it. And there'll be good times, there'll be seasons in your life you'll manage it really well. Then there'll be seasons that you drop the ball, you make a few wrong investments, maybe you don't apply for the correct savings account and you wish that you had transferred your savings to another savings account, it's fine. But at least you're saving and it is in a savings account. It's better that way than none at all. But keep on checking, keep on moving it, keep on learning it, and you'll get better over the time. But if you do make a bad financial decision, don't beat yourself up about it. Just try again and pivot. But that's the most important thing, is to try again and keep on moving.
Keep on moving. I love it. So, Natasha, let's jump into what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. These are three quick questions, rapid fire, that I ask all my guests. The first one is, what money myth are you trying to break?
My number one money myth is not to talk about money. Talk, 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 talk. You have to talk about money. Please do. That's the money myth. Don't keep it to yourself. Your salary, if you feel like your salary is not low, is low, talk to a colleague. Talk about money. Please do. Don't be
Yeah,
silent.
and I love it. And you don't have to get into specifics. You don't have to say that my salary is XYZ per week. You can just talk, as you said, just about the more general aspect. So let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self knowing what you know now about money?
My advice to my younger self is learn the key financial products. In the system, there will be credit. Learn what borrowed money means and the consequences if you do borrow, what it means for you and your family. Learn in life, learn about the consequences. So if you are going to take credit, learn the consequences of credit. If you are going to invest, learn the consequences of it. Learn the pros and cons of everything. I think with my younger self, I focused on the pros because I'm a bit of a positive mindseted girl. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But I didn't consider the cons very strongly. Therefore, I couldn't make a sound financial decision. So, my younger self understand consequences of every decision and then weigh it up and say, "Do you know what, even though the consequences is X, I believe the benefit is Y and it's going to weigh better than X. I'm going to proceed." But we have to learn as young people the bigger picture and learn consequences.
I love that. And it's interesting. I don't think I've heard it put that way by any of my other guests but that is so important, is the consequences of each financial service and product, because there always is a pro and con. So that's wonderful advice. So the closing question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
Number one tip to change the way we think about money. I go back to my thing. Money is a tool. I'm not going to tell you money will make you happy. It's just a tool that can aid in happiness. So see money as a hammer. Hold it gently but firmly. You will drop it. You may hurt somebody's finger or toes, but recover quickly. But it is a tool. It's a very fragile tool, but very fragile and powerful. It's one of those very weird tools. It's fragile but powerful. So hold it as a hammer and use it as wisely as possible. But it's a tool that may make you happy, may not necessarily make you happy either.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is for each of us is we have our own definition of happiness. So it's hard to expect money to help us meet our definition of happiness, because, we can all think of people who are very wealthy in the world who are visibly unhappy with all the
Yes,
money in the world.
exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
wonderful advice. So Natasha, where can people connect with you and learn more about your work and your programs?
So people can find me on my website, natashabonsu.com. So it's my name, natashabonsu.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Natasha Bonsu. And I just share practical insights and resources with teachers and home educators about financial resources and financial safeguarding. I talk about financial safeguarding a bit more, only because I want my young people to be protected and not naive by these scams that they see on social media. And again, to think critically about what they see and say, is this sound information? Has this been verified? Do I need to do more research before I go and invest in crypto, whatever the new scheme is? I want my young people not just to be followers of the herd and just follow other people, but to lead by doing their research first. So a lot of my things that you'll see on me on social media is safeguarding, protecting yourself from being vulnerable, being exploited, even predators taking advantage of your credit and your resources in relationships, in friendships, but being vigilant with your money right now is what I want young people to really learn, and parents, because we've all made some poor mistakes because we weren't vigilant. And it's hard to be vigilant 24 hours. I agree. It's time consuming, but just to have our antennas open about what's going on around us in the world so that if we see a scam, we can smell it a bit quickly and be able to make the right decision. That's really where I focus on.
I love it. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to Natasha's website and social media profiles. But as you point out, being vigilant with your money is such an important tip. So appreciate you sharing your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much, Tony, for having me. I appreciate it, and have everybody. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and thank you everyone as always for tuning into this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If today's episode helped you change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. You can also go to my website, tonystewart.com, to join the Get Ready movement, receive podcast updates, my weekly newsletter, and access to the Get Ready Toolkit of financial literacy resources at no cost. So until next time, let's change the way we think about money.